Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be finishing up on how to implement getting the app details for the application in our AppStore app. And if you're watching this video now and you haven't watched the previous videos, click down on the couple of links down below in the description to kind of catch up on where we're at right now. So let's take a look at our application here on the screen. And we notice that upon clicking into the app right here, we get a couple of different items inside of our app detail. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have a screenshot cell right here that shows the various screenshots for the application. And then right below, we have the description of the application. And then we also have a couple of different bits of information regarding the application, such as the seller, category, updated, and so on and so forth. And if I head back, and if I click on this telepaint icon here, you notice that it brings up a different detail for the application and a different set of screenshots. And the description down here is actually a little taller. And also it has its own information for the application. So this is what we will be building today. And we're going to be using REST, the REST API again. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. So let me just drag this guy to the corner like that. I'm going to go into Chrome and show you what we have in our API. So for each app inside of this categories array, we have an ID that belongs to each app, and that ID is going to be unique per app. And in this example, I have two types of apps, or two apps that have a unique ID of 1 and 2. And if I bring up this tab here, on this REST endpoint, we have AppDetail, and then we specify the ID of 1 to get Disney Build It's AppDetail information. And it comes with an array of screenshots, a description, and an array of app information that is all used to fill out the screen for this frozen app detail page here. And we're going to consume this bit of JSON into our app so that we can create this screen here. Okay, now let's go back into Photoshop, and actually not Photoshop, but Xcode. I'm going to run the application and show you exactly where we're currently at in the app. So upon clicking this app here, we don't get anything except for the header that we built in the last video that shows the app title, icon, price, and this segmented control bar at the very bottom. So let's go ahead and create the screenshots area first, which is this right here. If I get that in screen, this right here. And let's put that into a cell of its own. So because there's a lot of code in that cell, I'm going to create a new file and use this with file. I'll call that screenshot cell or screenshots cell, and import UIKit here. And then call this a class of screenshots cell. And this will just inherit from our base class that we created. And base class contains a setUpViews method, which we'll use to set up the views after the initializer is fired. So the first thing we want to do in the setUpViews is just to set the background color equal to some kind of color. In this case, I'll use blue color to make sure that the cell is going to show up. And by that, I mean, I'm going to go into AppDetailController and go back to the actual controller here. And I'm going to implement the method that returns how many numbers of cells I have inside of this entire collection view. And by that, I mean, I'm going to implement collection view and use number of items in section like that. Let's return 1 for now. And then we also need to implement cell for item index path like that. And we need to return a dequeued cell from the collection view like this, dequeue. And for the identifier, we'll create a cell ID and almost always use the index path like that. So let's create that cell ID right here. Cell ID. There we go. And now we need to register that cell that we just created. And that will be called screenshots cell, like that, using cell ID as the identifier. And let's see, upon running that, we'll get a very small cell that is inside of the cell area. So this blue cell here. And what do we want to do? So the reason why it is 50 by 50 in pixels is because we haven't implemented or overridden the actual size. So we do collection view and look at the layout. So this last layout method called size of specified item cell, if we just return a CG size of, let's see, frame width, and let's just do maybe 200. And you'll notice that the cell is going to encompass the entire width of the view and then have a height of 200 pixels, just like how we specified here. So to get our screenshots inside of this cell, it's really easy, and we're going to use the same method of getting our applications into a horizontal scrolly view like that. And the idea is to use this cell as a kind of a collection view container cell. So what we're going to do is very, very simply create a collection view inside of this cell like this, collection view. And then call this, let's just use a collection view. And here we need to actually construct it with a 0 rect and a layout that we'll create right above, like this UI collection view flow layout, like that. The layout will have a scroll direction of horizontal. And let's just return that collection view there. Let's see, return it with a paran. And here we'll say cv.background color equals UI color red. I've got to get that color. Red color, like that. And then now we can turn off this background color there. Finally, we call add subviews and put that into our subview hierarchy. Next, we will add the constraints of horizontal edge to edge, like that, collection view. And I'm going to use the same thing, but instead put V for the vertical edge to edge constraints. So now that we have this all kind of said and done, we'll be able to see our red collection view inside of that cell. And I am going to need to return the actual screenshot cells inside of this red blob right there. And to do that, I'm going to set the collection view data source and delegate to self. So what I mean is collection view data source equals self, collection view delegate also equals self. But we need to also implement this collection view data source, delegate, and let's just use the flow layout as well. So while we're at it. And now we need to do this bit again. So let's just say return a number of 5 for the number of items in this section here in this red square. And also I have to return an actual cell. So cell for item index path will be something here. So I'm going to have to dequeue another cell. And here I'm going to use cell ID again and index path. Right. Now we need to actually create this dequeued cell class right here. And I'm going to just create a private class. This will be a screenshot image cell like this. Subclass it as a base cell. Override setup views. Provide the super call like that. And then simply do this background color equals UI color dot maybe yellow color. And this way I can easily see if it's going to be showing up or not. And let's create the cell ID bit here. Let's see, let's just make it private. And finally, we need to return collection view. Well, actually, we need to register the cell like this. So screenshot image cell. And for the ID, we'll use cell ID. Okay, having done that, I'm going to run the application now, and we'll see what happens. So we see an arrangement of 5 cells, 50 by 50, and they are kind of in a vertical orientation right now, or maybe that's actually horizontal. So it's going that way, that way, and that way. And in order to get to this layout here, we simply need to provide the actual size of these cells. And by that, I mean to return an actual size in this layout method here. So CG SizeMake. And if we use a width of, let's say, 200, and let's say frame of height like that, running that, we'll have horizontal cells that span the entire height of this collection view like that. So that's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good so far. And what I want to do next is to provide an actual padding to the left right there, and also padding on the right. So I'm going to very easily, again, use this collection view layout method. At the very top, we have margins that we can provide. I'm going to return a UI edge inset of, let's see, 0 for the top, 14 for the left, 0 for the bottom, and 14 for the right. And for the height, let's just subtract maybe 28. That, and then running it, we get this horizontal scrolly view right here. So that's looking pretty close. Now that we have kind of the base layout for our screenshots collection view right here, we can kind of remove the coloring that we no longer need to visually identify the cells. So I just removed the red, and now we want to actually replace this yellow with an actual image view. So let image view be an image view like this, and then we'll just create it very simply. So IV content mode is almost always going to be aspect fill, and let's just return IV like that. And now we just simply go add subviews, image view, and then we'll just use these constraints up here to fill out the entire frame. So paste, paste, and now we should be good to go. So I do IV.background color equals UI color dot, let's see, UI color dot green color. And running that, we'll have cells that are actually green, like so. That looks pretty good. I actually want to change that black color to, let's see, background color equals UI color dot clear color. Run that, the black will now be entirely clear, showing the white background of the collection view, like that. So now is the actual interesting part of the application, where we want to take in the JSON data from our REST API and then put it into our application. And let me just remind you what we want to do here. So every time we click on this cell here, we know that the app ID is 1, and that is the parameter. If we go into the models and go to this app object here, we have an ID specified by that. And then we want to pass in this URL here with the ID changed to whatever the app ID is going to be. So I just copied that URL, and what we do here is every time we click on these apps inside the main screen, we actually set the app on this AppDetailController. And by that, I mean, if I make a breakpoint there, I click on there, we get the app set there. And then if we look into the debugger, we see that ID is actually 1 by that value that we see there. So let's just do this to actually get the JSON data into our AppDetailController. So let's let URL string equals that. Okay, so that. All right, that looks a little better. And let's just use an ID of something here. So this ID actually has to be something. And I'm going to safely unwrap it by doing this. If let ID equals app.id, we're going to actually call this JSON API by doing this. So ns URL session, shared session, data task, use the bottom one with the completion handler. And this needs to be a URL. So string URL, URL string like that. And let's see, I think we need to unwrap that. And this needs to be data, response, and error, like so. Okay, and finally, we need to call resume on this task to make it actually fire and reach out to the internet and grab the JSON data. So having done that, we will parse out the JSON from this JSON data structure here very, very easily by doing this. So I'm going to go into this models file, and I'm going to copy and paste, see, this entire bit here that we kind of know guarantees our JSON parsing. And what I want to change here is I actually do not need featured apps, but instead I need what I'm going to call AppDetail. And this is just a regular app. An app will just say set values for keys with dictionary. And this is our JSON dictionary like this. Any object. And here. So let's see, AppDetail. That. And so in here, I'm going to call self.collectionView reload data. And I'm going to run this in just a bit to show you what is happening here. One final bit that I need to do is to set the app equals AppDetail. And then what this means is I will grab, I'll grab the JSON coming from this URL here. Let's see. And then I'm going to parse it into this new app that I'm calling AppDetail. And then I'm going to set my app here as this AppDetail. So I'm going to show you one bug that occurs from doing this type of code. And it is going to, let's just see what AppDetail is. Okay, app. And then we call set values. So it's going to crash immediately from this unrecognized key app information right there. And the reason for that crash is because we have these 3 new keys that don't have a property on app yet. And to fix that, let's go back to models, go back to this app thing here, and do this. So var screenshots is a string, an array string. The var app information is, I'm just going to use any object for now. And then let's just use a description like that as a string. Now that we have these 3 keys, so screenshots, description, and app information, we can run that again, and the set with the dictionary is going to be ran without crashing, hopefully. So let's see, we have a crash here, and description is something that we need to fix. So description is a special keyword for all NS objects. And we need to just fix that by simply overriding set value like this. So set value, if key equals description, we'll just say self.description equals value as string. Otherwise, just call superset value with value and key. Having done that, the application will be parsed properly now. So let's look at what AppDetail is. So ID1, we get this description here, and then we also get a string of or an array of strings inside of our screenshots, which we'll use to populate this collection view right there. Cool, cool, cool. And if I run that, everything is now fine, which is good. And notice that if I put a breakpoint on line 17, if I keep hitting this, it keeps calling itself. And that's because we're cyclically, or we're constantly calling this setter here, which calls this did set, and then it continuously calls itself, firing off this API service infinitely in an infinite loop. So I'm going to kill the application there and show you how to fix this. So if I do if app.screenshots is not equal nil, I'm just going to return. And let me just fix the indentation there. Okay. Having done that, I am going to set a breakpoint there, and let's hit that. And immediately after I call this set in here, screenshots is now a list of strings, and it is going to return here, and it's no longer going to infinitely call this setter loop. And I can verify that by putting another breakpoint on line 16, and notice that everything is safe. So let's now do the interesting part of actually setting up these images inside of this horizontal collection view here. And let's take a look at the actual file names here. So screenshot 1, 2, 3, 4 for frozen. And I'm going to take in these actual screenshots here and just import it into my project. So let's do that. Open up the assets catalog and import these files here. And we get our images. Next, we go into the actual, let's see, the screenshot cell, and we'll create, let's see, a property called app that will be an optional like this. And every time we set this here, we'll call collection view dot reload data. And upon doing that, we will set the image for this screenshot image cell inside of this method cell for item at index path. So first I need to downcast it into a screenshot image cell just like that. And let's return the cell there. And every time I'm in here, I can actually access this image view by just doing that and set the image like this. So your image named that, and I have to just simply access the screenshots array and get the actual string for the image name. So you notice how it's complaining with this compiler error, and the reason is because we need to safely unwrap it by doing this. And we should be fine now. It's always good to safely unwrap your optional variables, just so your app doesn't crash, right? Now that I have done that, if I run this, it's not going to show any images yet because we haven't called this app setter inside of our detail controller. So click, nothing happens. And let's see, let's go into the cell for item right there. And we need to downcast this as a screenshot cell. So as screenshots cell, and return that cell right there. Finally, we need to call cell.app equals app, just like that. Okay, everything looks good. If I run this right now, I think it should crash because I haven't modified this number of rows here. Let's see. So that is just coincidentally returning 5. So everything works out for now. And right here, I want to actually return the app.screenshots.count like that. And we need to safely unwrap it like this. So if let count equals that, return the count. Otherwise, the count will be nil, or screenshots will be nil, and we'll just return 0 like so. The reason why the screenshots are overlapping each other like that is because we haven't actually turned off the mask to bound. So let's just do this. Layer.mask to bound equals true. We should be okay. So click. Now we get this here, which looks pretty okay so far. And instead of 200 pixels wide, I think it should be a little bit wider. So let's go with 240. And let's see. In the detail controller, I actually want to change this height of these cells to be a little bit thinner. And I'm going to do that in the AppDetailController and return maybe 150 for the entire height. So click. We now get this. I think the height might be just a little bit taller. So let's do 170 and see where we are. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And the one final bit for this cell is to add a horizontal image or horizontal line at the very bottom. It's very similar to this header cell. Let's see, in the previous video, we added this thing called a divider line. And I'm just going to copy and paste that in, let's say there. And let's also add it to the subview hierarchy by doing that. And here, let's just copy and paste the horizontal constraints. Use the divider line, paste 14 pixels from the left. And then we'll put it all the way at the bottom by saying v1, 1 pixel tall. And here we'll say divider line view. So now running this, the screenshot cell will have a divider line view that is showing up right there. And everything looks okay. The padding is pretty much perfect with 14 pixels on the left and on the top. And if you really wanted to fix the layout of the spacing here, this is actually defaulted to, I think, 8 or 10. And you can push that to 14 if you really wish to do so. Okay, now let's do one more thing with our JSON data. So what I mean is a description right here actually gives us a description string, and we'll present it inside of another cell right here. So what I mean is I actually want to present this description information text right below the screenshots row. And I'll do that by creating another cell. Let's see, how much code do I have in my detail controller right now? Okay, so everything looks okay. I want to create a cell right here called AppDetail description cell, and we'll just subclass a base cell like that. Here we'll do setup views. Hopefully you guys are pretty familiar with this setup view method here, because I use that quite often. Makes my life easier. Okay, now, and also I'm just including this in this, including this class inside this file because it should be easier to follow in terms of actually creating this video. And let's see. So to create this bit of text, the easiest way I know of doing it is to create a simple text view and just dump all the text inside the text view. So let's create the text view like that. TV UI text view, and let's just say text view dot text is sample description for now until we replace it a little bit later. So TV, and then we'll add it into the subviews like this text view, and then we'll say this add constraints format. And I think I want to do this. So 8 pixels from the left will be this v0, and okay. It'll also use 8 pixels from the right. Okay, we have that. And then let's just use this for a V. Perhaps this is 4. And this might be 4 as well. And having done that, so I'm just guessing at these 8 and 4 pixels for now. And we'll see. We'll tweak it later when we get the actual description inside of the little text box. Okay. And now let's actually get this description box inside of our collection view down here. I'm going to do that by, let's see, first we need to return the cell here. So imagine we are in index row. So this is 0 and the description will be index 1. So I'm going to say if index path dot item equals 1, we'll say cell equals collection view, dequeue some kind of cell again. This will be our description cell ID. Index path will be this app detail description cell. And then we'll have access to the text view inside of this block here. Let's see. So to get this all to work, we do this entire register process bit. So cell ID, register, and app detail cell. Let's see, description, cell ID. Okay, good. And now we will return 2 for the number of items in the section. So that's pretty straightforward. I think registering these cells in code is actually faster than doing it inside the storyboard. For example, I don't have to drag anything from the little corner widget and hook up these very imaginary dots and lines. Anyhow, we see that our text view is showing up here. And let's actually get the description here on the top and the actual description text inside of that single text view component. And the very simple way of doing that is to create something called an attributed string or attributed string. So we'll create a private function down here and we'll say description attributed text. And this will return NS attributed string like that. And then here inside of this description cell dequeuing, we'll say text view dot attributed text equals description attributed text. And if we run that, what we'll get is an error first. And so we have to create this attributed text here, NS mutable attributed string. Using this, we'll say description, like that. And this will just say NS font, attribute name, UI font, system font of perhaps 14. And then we'll just return this attributed text here. So I'm doing this very simply and quickly to show you what gets returned inside of that, that little cell. And you see it says description right now. And now we can fully flesh out what the text should be. So I want to see, so that looks like that. So pretty close. And now I want to append onto this attributed text additional string pieces like this string. And for this, we'll use the actual app description. So what I mean is if let desk like that, app.description like this, we'll actually append this desk variable like that. And then for attributes, we'll specify a font of I think 12, maybe even 11 is what I want. So there we go. And now we can run this and see what we get. Click, and now you see description, and then this bit of text concatenated onto description. So that's not exactly what we want the text to look like, and we're going to do a couple of things to fix this. First is to add a new line after description to get this text down just a little bit. And then we actually want to change the color of that text. So it's very easily done by saying NS foreground color attribute name, and this will just say dark gray color. And keep in mind that the colors are not exact, but for this demo, it's easier to just use these simple colors here. So that's pretty good. And you might be saying that the description and the actual text is a little too tight together. And we fix that very easily by doing this. Okay, let style equals NS mutable paragraph style. Style.line spacing right here equals, let's say 10. And then we'll just say attributed text, add attribute. ns paragraph style attribute name, use that style as value, and we'll need a range that we'll create right here. So that range equals ns make range 0, and attributed text is going to be string characters dot count. So running that, we'll get a little bit of space from the label and then this text right here. So pretty cool stuff. You don't need to create like a UI label on top and then another UI text view on the bottom. All this makes it very easy to calculate the actual height of this cell. So what I mean is I'm going to add an additional horizontal line separator down there, and I'm just going to grab it from this cell file here. Go back to my AppDetailController, add that down here, add it as a subview, divider line view, and let's see. So add constraints, horizontal, 14 from the left, and then v0, and make it span all the way to the right edge. This will be divider line view. And then at the very bottom of this bit here, I want to do this. Okay. So I'm going to do v1, 1 pixel tall, and specify divider line view like that. So that'll give me this 1 pixel line at the very bottom of the description text. So there it is. And notice how tall this entire cell is. So if I click on this telepaint blob here, it actually is a variable height. So I want to show you how to create this text view so that it only shows enough white space to contain the entire text field. Oh, okay. To do that, we will utilize this attributed text here inside of our method that says size for item at index path. Okay, so if we are, let's see, index path of 1, we know that we're returning the size for this cell here, which is 0 and 1, index item path of 1. And we need to return some kind of size here, right? And we know that the size is always going to be the entire width of this collection view specified by this. And we need to figure out the height based on this attributed text. So attributed text can be calculated, or you can use a method called bounding rect on this attributed text to get the actual size in terms of how much it is going to occupy for a certain frame or a certain rect. And if that's confusing, let me illustrate that with the code right here. So let rect equals description attributed text bounding rect with size, and we need to specify a size. So I'm going to say let size equals CG size, and this is just a dummy size right here, and the width will be something. The width is actually the amount of width pixels that the text view will occupy, and this is a little bit tricky. So it is supposed to be view frame dot width minus a couple of pixels on the left here. So I'm specifying left 8 and right 8. So let's just use -8. And for height, I always just use 1000. It has to be something arbitrarily large for it to calculate this size properly. So dummy size. And for options, I'm going to create options here. And a string drawing options uses font leading union, and a string drawing options uses line fragment origin. Don't ask me what this means because I don't really know, but those are the options you have to specify. And use a context of nil. Okay, now that we have the kind of the approximate rectangle that will contain our attributed text, we simply need to specify the height from that rect like that. And having run this, I already know that most of the time this calculation is not going to be perfect. So what I mean is it's cutting off this text down here. If I use this telepaint bit, it's also cutting off that text on the very bottom. And the easy way of fixing this is to simply add, let's say, 30 pixels to that cell. So running that, we get this, and the line looks decent. I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it looks okay for me. And yep, looks pretty good. So let's finally fix this telepaint green screenshot business here. And the reason why I was doing that is because I have not allocated the assets inside of the catalog. So go back to Finder, grab these images and pull it into the project, and then we get these assets inside of our catalog. Having done that, we will click into telepaint, and then we get these images here. So let me just blow this guy up. And here we get the images, the text down here. And if we go back to featured and click into frozen, we get the same UI that is pulling in the REST data from our REST API right here. So typically how REST API works is you provide an endpoint, in this case AppDetail, with an ID for something that you want to fetch. And in this case, it's the actual app that is from our main screen, and we get the detailed information inside of a JSON blob like this. And upon doing that, you typically want to reset up your model object with the new data. I mean, you can you can apply setters, or you can just fully reset the model object like this in this one line here. And that is kind of it for now. I think I'm running along on the time for this video. And I guess I'll leave it up to you to implement this app information bit. And by that, I mean this here. And this is a little tricky in terms of getting the size correctly. And the way I've been doing this in this app is to allocate a UI collection view that has these two cells here, or I think it's actually one cell, and it contains the information for the name and the value for each one of these, what I call key value pairs. And if you are going to do this, it should be relatively straightforward. That's all I'm going to say about that. So let's go back to the application that we have at hand right now. And notice how everything is looking pretty good. And I think that's all I wanted to address today. So hopefully you liked this video, and there's going to be a link down in the description for the step-by-step guide on how to kind of accomplish all this. And if you are liking these this series at least, make sure to subscribe, because I think I have probably one more video to show you guys how to do something else, which maybe I'll leave as a surprise. And yeah, make sure to subscribe for this channel. And yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying everything so far. So enjoy the rest of your day, and bye-bye.